how are you doing today? Welcome to another episode of the Akedika show with me, your host, Hope. And thank you for joining me tonight, even as you're all coming in. I hope you make yourselves comfortable and you're ready to get involved in the discussion. And from those guys who are commenting on my Instagram video when I posted, no, we are not having a little guest on the show, unfortunately. He was just saying hi, but he will not be joining us tonight. So we're just going to wait for him to start talking before we can involve him in the discussion. But no, he will not be joining us tonight. But yeah. So how has your week been? It's the first week of March and the first quarter of the year, guys. It's literally coming to an end. Like, how is that even possible? Like, 2023 is just, it's in a rush. Like, slow down. Like, I was excited for February to end, but I didn't deep that, that's actually just the first quarter of the year nearly down. But I am very much ready for winter to be over, though, because I am sick and tired of being cold. Even when I'm indoors, it's actually getting out of hand. The only time I'm actually warm is when I'm in the shower, and my shower has been setting off the fire alarm, guys. That's how much I need that heat, because that's the only time I know that I'm actually going to be warm and going to be hot. And my temperature is going to be at where I want it to be. Like, in my head, I'm probably in Dubai or Namibia or somewhere nice and warm, like somewhere where I don't need a jacket, I don't need a body warmer, I don't need the heater. But yeah, hopefully we have a good summer, guys. What do you think summer's going to be like? Do you think we're going to have a good summer, a hot one? I mean, probably not for all the right reasons, global warming and all, but I do hope we have a good summer. Is anybody on the live, in the chats? Can I get a wave? Can I get a hello? How are my people doing today? Yep. But guys, let's get into it. Let's get into the first story. And this one, I'm taking a little dig at myself as a journalist here, guys. So, but you know what? It's the truth and it needs to be told. So, like I said to you, I pledged to always be here to advocate for the truth, whether it's personal, whether it's not personal. But so basically, the headline is How Fake Copyright Complaints Are Muzzling Journalists. So imagine as a journalist, right? You go out, you report on a story. I mean, you gather the information to report on a story. You go do your research, you go conduct interviews, and then you come back home and write it up, and you submit your story into whatever publishing organization you work with. And a lot of people, obviously, in this day and age, because these stories are online and they're not just in the physical newspapers anymore, people will just take a story and, make it their own, essentially. Imagine, as a journalist, you've worked hard, you've conducted your research, and then somebody just comes and claims your work as their own. Like, it's devastating. I know in anything you do, like, even I know a lot of influencers can relate. When you start a trend or when you start something and then other people catch on to it and then you don't get the credit for it. Like, I find that really, really disheartening. And everybody who does something should always get credit for it. That is my number one belief. Like, everybody should get credit for their work and nobody should be able to just steal people's work as their own. And thankfully, there are laws in place for that. So journalists have some protection. It doesn't stop people from doing what they're going to do, but essentially you're going to get caught because you're not going to be able to get away with it, even if it takes several years to catch on to someone because they're operating in a different country or completely different part of the world, or they're trying their hardest. It's just like at uni when you submit an assignment, even if you try and tweak a few words but you copied that assignment, yeah, they're going to catch you out because they don't play like that. The computer systems will be able to detect that, yeah, this text is pretty much 99.8% the same thing. But yeah, guys. So that's literally what I wanted to talk about. But I also want to kind of talk about it in a sense that it's hard because the relationship with the news, journalism, and how we receive news is a lot of people have caught on to the fact that there's a whole lot of propaganda going on. Like there's this video I saw on Instagram about a lady who was, she basically gets asked a lot, like, why did you stop being a journalist? She went from being like a formal journalist, like a serious journalist, whatever that means, to being a more of a entertainer. And her response was, I do not want to be a robot. I do not want to just talk what I've been taught to tell. I want to be able to speak the truth with my own words. I don't want to be told what to say and how to say it. And she played a clip of during COVID period of all the news stations and when they were reporting on the COVID, and how pretty much 99.9% of what they were saying was pretty much the same script. And I'm talking across all the news media. I'm pretty sure you guys saw this video circulating at some point during the COVID period when, you know, they're very much those who were advocating against COVID, in a sense that they were saying that it's just a tactic, an epidemic that was basically planned or whatever, you know, the conspiracies that came along with the pandemic. And they put that clip together to show how much of, and obviously because we were all experiencing the same thing across the globe, but it was very questionable, like, why are all the journalists saying the same thing word to word across the UK, America, the whole world essentially? It was very dodgy. So yeah, I do really believe that journalism has changed so much. And even when I went into it myself, I went there with the, and I'm telling you right now, most journalists will tell you, I went into this because I'm a passionate storyteller. I want to tell people's story. I want to tell the truth. I want to, you know, we are advocates essentially, and we do want to talk about people's lives. We want to put their experiences out there. We want to be able to highlight other people's experiences in different parts of the world. That's why you'll see correspondents who go to different parts of the world where there's war correspondents, like, why on earth would somebody take that job? But they genuinely have that care for people, and it's as if they suffer alongside them. They feel their pain, they feel their suffering, and they want the whole world to know what's going on. They want the world to know this is what's happening in this part of the world, and they want people to be able to make a change essentially and be able to help. If there's a way something can be helped, we want to be able to help. So let's not take away from the job itself, and the people who go into it, I feel like their heart are always in the right place. Where they end up along the lines though, that, I don't know. I don't know whether things change once you start working for the big news media companies, and, you know, and I don't want to say too much, guys, because essentially I'm not trying to, you know, land on the wrong side of big news media organizations, but yeah, a lot of people who go into this job's passionate. I saw the fire being quenched in people I was in class with. Like, you get into it, you're so excited, you're so passionate, and then when you're being taught to think a certain way and do things a certain way, and that fire slowly starts dying in you, and then you realize, wow, like, you say you're teaching us about propaganda so we can avoid it, but essentially that's what you're teaching us to become. So it's a hard one to navigate. And, you know, we've seen journalists who have laid their life for what they believe in and what they're advocating for, you know, being arrested in different parts of the world and not being very welcomed. Like, the job comes with a lot. It comes with a lot of responsibility, and a lot of people do put their life on the line. I remember personally when I first told a lot of my family members that what I was going to go into, they were like, what do you mean? You want to go to Iraq to report on the war? I'm like, that's not all journalism is, guys. You know, there's a lot more to journalism than just that. A lot more to journalism. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section. What is your report when it comes to journalists? How do you feel about them? Do you trust them? Do you even know? And that's the thing, like, a lot of people just take an article and read it, but they don't actually care to find out who's behind the article. and it's sort of just they're sort of grouped as one person. Like a lot of people can only name maybe the the BBC presenter they see every night, or they can name maybe one particular person. Like Katie Hopkins made a name for herself. Some people will say for all the wrong reasons, but you know, a lot of journalists sort of just go unknown. They'll have a whole career and their name will never be known. But there are some who really make a name for themselves, and most of the time it's because they're extremely controversial, or you know, yeah, most of the time they're controversial. There's no two ways about it. Whether it's because they're saying the truth that people don't want to hear, or whether because they just have a very extreme point of view that they they speak out about. They're very vocal about, and people will, yeah, will get at them for it. So let me know what you guys think. Because yeah, at the end of the day, I really believe the relationship between journalists and people should, you know, be positive. And what do you guys think about fake news, and how much of it do you think is actually out there in the world today? How much of, when you first see an article, do you instantly believe what you read, or do you first have to read it and then you think twice, like, is that real? Is that fake news? How many times has the concept fake news come to your mind when you've heard something? You know, because I genuinely believe that the trust there has been jeopardized, and a lot of it is because the media has reported one thing, in the world we've seen another thing, because social media has actually opened our eyes about things that have been reported for so long. The Western world were being told one thing or another about what's going on in Africa, or one thing or another about what's going on in Asia or the Middle East. And then because of social media, the people who are experiencing these things are actually in communication. We've been able to say, well, hold on a minute, actually, yeah, there might be an outbreak of, I don't know, Ebola. However, this thing came out of nowhere. It's not something that came as a result of our hygiene or whatever. You know, just things like that that we've been able to break down those, you know, what the media has tried to portray and the reality of the actual situation. Oh, guys, how much do you actually trust your BBC, the CNN, Sky News? You know, how much of those do you actually trust? And my question is, why do they keep certain news out of the media? Like, my sister from Belgium messaged me on Instagram. I mean, she actually put a post on her story, and she was talking about how, why is this conversation not happening in the UK? Why is nobody talking about the hangings that have happened simultaneously in London of all black male? They're all black males who have been hung from a tree. Like, it's very unusual, guys. Why are 5 male over the last couple of months been, I don't know how long the time scale is actually, because the story, I'm hearing it in bits. It's so hard to get information on the story. And people who are putting the story out there, before it gets taken down, they're not trying to say too much in the video, because the video instantly gets blacklisted, essentially. And just things like that. Why don't we hear that in the news, you know? It's like, and the article, I posted this as well on Instagram, about the top 20 most dangerous cities to live in the UK? And I looked at that list and I was thinking to myself, some cities are missing, some places I'd never heard of, I didn't even know they were in the UK. And why is London not the first on the list? And I was just like, I don't know. How is that list? How did they come to that conclusion? That was the information. But that's for you guys to decide, you know, each to their own. But at the end of the day, when you are digesting this information, just use your own mind as well, guys. I also want to talk about my second story. It actually has a video that I'll be showing you in a second. And this new special education needs school. Basically, the government wants to put more into special needs school and children and help them out a little bit more. Let's just see what the video says. Yeah? Okay, guys. So it'll just be a second. It won't be very long. But basically, we all know that, I mean, you know, in the UK is actually quite very advanced in this, but there's always room for improvement. And when it comes to special kids with special needs and learning difficulties and things like that and disabilities, there's a lot of catering that is to them, that to support the parents, the family in the home, whether the child is able to remain in the home or whether they get cared for in a childcare home. And obviously these kids are also very much entitled to an education, and there are schools for that. However, because there's not that many schools, they tend to be overcrowded. Teachers who work with special needs tend to be overworked, and it's sort of been swept under the rug. You know, nobody, it's not the main focus or main attention when it comes to the kind of problems that we have and face as a society. However, you know, I think it's a great thing that they're going and willingly going into this. But to be honest, I don't know if you guys remember, not long ago, I believe it was a mother who spoke out because she saw the conditions that her child was living in, right? Because she could not take care of her child in her home. She physically could not, because the child was just too much for her to be able to handle on her own without a carer in her home. And the facilities that he was put in, the boy was sleeping on the floor on a mattress. He looked like he was in a jail cell, essentially, and the whole place just looked like, even the room, the way the door shut, it's not a nice environment for a child who is supposed to be protected and looked after by the government to be staying in that kind of situation. And I feel like it's incidents like that that roared up, you know, the public and made the government think, you know what, yeah, we've been slacking in this department, let's do something about it. But here's the clip, guys.
I felt like they've been battling the system too long. Try and improve the system to make sure that you get more support. You know what you should expect.
Can you guarantee that the children who need education, health and care plans are going to get them, and they're going to get the right support with these new measures? Can you guarantee that to families?
I think that's definitely what will happen. You know, people right now who need educational health and support plans, what's happening, I think, a lot is people feel they need that to get any support. And that's wrong, actually. You should be able, if your child needs extra support, it's their language, if they need extra support, that support should be available. You shouldn't need to get an EHCP plan to make sure that that support available. So that's one of the things we're also doing with mainstream schools. I mean, this is for everybody, just to improve how we deal with special educational needs.
And guys, a point I want to pick up on what she said at the end. This is also something they're looking to do in mainstream school, because mainstream school do cater to some special needs students depending on the level of special need that they are. And you know, like we said, the autism spectrum is wide. Like, there are some people who can be functional in society, but that does not take away from the fact that they do need that extra support. And you know, it goes on, whether it's physical disabilities and special needs, whether it's not necessarily physical, but it's still there. But yeah, I think it's a great thing that the government are looking to do, and I am in full support of that. And I really hope that we can see this implemented sooner rather than later, and you know, that every child gets the support that they need. Because we have seen that just because somebody has special needs or is on the spectrum does not mean that they are not capable academically, and sometimes they tend to be extremely intelligent. However, because that support is not put in place early enough, or it's not recognized early on enough, they just, you know, they go on without the support that they need, and they're not able to live to the best of their abilities, essentially. Just like, you know, I'm sure you guys saw this extraordinary story about the first, I believe, youngest male is now a lecturer at Cambridge University, and this individual did not speak and was not able to read or write up until the age of 18, and now they're actually teaching at that level. Do you know what I mean? At such a high standard university. So it just comes to show you, everybody has the ability to do amazing, extraordinary things, and with the right support, system, with the right encouragement around them, anybody is able to achieve wonderful, wonderful things, and nobody should just be limited and cut off straight away based off what they've been diagnosed with, based off a doctor's report, which essentially could correctly highlight their situation. However, it does not mean that they are limited, they are less than, or they're less capable. But I think that's a wonderful, positive thing, and I really do hope that we get to see more of that very, very soon, guys. Also, something that this one is like, when I first read the headline, I was like, you know what, that's a good thing. But then the more I got into the story, I was like, well, that's a pointless thing. So let me tell you what I'm talking about. TikTok has announced that every user under 18 will soon have their accounts defaulted to an hour daily screen time. So anybody under the age of 18, their screen time will be limited to 60 seconds. And that would be a default. The app will automatically do that for anybody under the age of 18. And I believe that's going to go into play very, very soon. However, now, I also have a clip for this, guys. So let's look at the clip quickly.
Another real concern is the amount of time kids and teens spend on TikTok. Just announced moments ago, this is a big development this morning. TikTok says that every user under 18 years old will soon have their accounts defaulted to a 1 hour a day screen time limit. Teenagers can turn that setting off, but it's still one of the most aggressive safety moves yet by any social media company. Let's bring in Kara Swisher, host of the podcast On with Kara Swisher and Pivot. Kara, good to have you. All right. When I read this, I was very happy. And then the qualifier that, yes, kids and teens can turn it off. But I have to say, I don't see Meta doing this. I don't see Instagram or Facebook doing this. It's a big, important step, is it not?
Well, other services have limited screen time and put in lots of screen tools. Instagram has, in fact, done that, and
but
Snapchat
not a
has.
Default. But not a default.
Not a default. No. And so it's a nice look. Kids can turn it back on is the thing. And China actually rules like that, and they can't turn it back on. And obviously, we can't do that in this country. But it slows people down, but they'll continue to turn it on. And so that's a good thing. It's sort of reminding people. But I don't know how many teens are going to turn it off or keep it off once the default's in place. I just don't think they will. It's an addictive app, just the way all of them are. And it's the whole social media problem is that TikTok is so good, you can't stop watching it. And so how do you solve that problem? And then how do you solve what Matthew Pottinger was talking about, which is I've talked about for years, which is propaganda, I think more than censorship, but propaganda that is being broadcast into this country. And you just don't know because it's the influence of the Chinese Communist Party is significant on companies like ByteDance, which owns TikTok, even if the executives say otherwise. And I think they're being very sincere. We have to cover.
So guys, if you know TikTok, you know the makeup of how TikTok is made. And I genuinely believe that out of all the social media apps that have come over the years, TikTok is a very, very addictive app. And I stayed a while before I got into the app myself, and I believe that the only time I got into the app after I was detoxing from my other apps, and I was like, you know what, let me just check out TikTok, because I was very much a big advocate of, nope, I'm not adding another social media into my life. I already have enough going on. I don't need another one. But hey ho, here we are today. I'm a TikToker now. But I genuinely do believe that the default was very much needed for anybody who is a child. And I believe the age to be on TikTok is 13, I believe, legally. I'm not quite sure. I'll need to double check on that, guys. But it was nice because they said, okay, a default for an hour a day, screen limited time. However, they can turn it off. And then it just sort of defiles the purpose, really, doesn't it? Because like they said in the video, how many teenagers are actually going to opt for that hour to tell them, right, okay, my 1 hour's up, let me put TikTok away for the day. I don't know how effective that's going to be unless parents get involved and they implement that and take, you know, full advantage of what the app has done. Then I highly doubt it's going to be very effective. That's just another way of an app covering their back and say, you know what, we did our part, we know we're addictive, we tried to make it better for the young people because we know all this consumption is not good for their mind and their development and their brain. However, you know, so they just covering their backs and they remove that responsibility from them of the negative effects that these social media apps can have on people. And I do believe that social media apps have a positive impact on people's lives and our daily lives. However, I do also believe that the negatives sometimes can outweigh the negatives if you are vulnerable and you're taking these things in without allowing yourselves to process them or knowing what's real and what's not real, knowing what to believe and what not to believe, knowing what to follow and what not to follow. And when you're young, sometimes that can be a very blurred line due to peer pressure, just due to not necessarily having that discipline within yourself and just being vulnerable overall as well. So I don't know, guys. I personally don't believe that anybody, I say 18 are old enough. Maybe anything from under 16, 15 years old and below, very vulnerable state of mind and should be highly, highly protected from any platform, social media platforms, because at that point, just building insecurities, building these unrealistic goals and ideologies in their minds and thinking, if my life is not like this, then it's all wrong. But yeah, we're just building a very insecure young group of young people and it's not right. So I do hope that the default up, that parents take it upon themselves as well to implement it, because once it's I'm sure it's going to be on the updated TikTok, because they don't take too long when it comes to these things. Once they make an update, they make it known right away. But guys, thank you so much for joining me today. We've come to another end of another episode, and I really, really appreciate you being here with me. I wonder if anybody was on the live, if you guys said anything in the chats, or you were just logged in but you were too busy to type. However, I still appreciate you joining in today and just, you know, talking with us. Thank you. Have a good night.